Welcome, everybody, to Generation Dan, the only podcast that is done on a DOS computer, apparently. I'm Atlas, I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
I'm Dino, the genetic marvel, and I am old and grumpy, and it's raining, and all my bones hurt. That's where I'm at. That's fine.
And our guest today from the Goods from the Woods is Rivers Langley. How are you, sir?
Just wanted to let you guys know that I am missing my big showbiz opportunity to be here right now. Just saw on the Everything app that Kanye West is having auditions right down the street from my house.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, for his new music video, and he says that you have to be willing to be wearing a swastika t-shirt to be in it. And I am, as soon as we hang up, I'm gonna go park across the street and just see, because it's literally like 5 blocks away, and I was like, I gotta see if people are going. Like,
I mean, like, you just to see. I just want to know, just because, like that. Saying something like that out loud, and you're like, you have to be willing. You're like, this is the problem. Is a lot of people will be like, I'm going to show my willingness by coming pre-dressed in a swastika and just heading over. You're like, that's a mistake, friend. You don't want to do that.
His qualifications were you have to be darker than P. Diddy and no fatties allowed. So I was like, well, I'm not going to get it anyway. But
maybe stay and watch the fireworks. That's
Maybe they need a grip or something.
I mean, listen, I would just walk in and be like, I identify as darker than P. Diddy. What's up? Let's just see what happens. That's fine. I feel like that.
I identify as a waif.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's fair. I get it. All right. So the topic we are talking about is tech making us useless. Okay. Now, Rivers, you have a significant amount of stringed instruments behind you. Are you able to play those? Is that... I have stringed instruments. I can't do shit with them because I have giant sausage fingers, but my wife can. So.
Well, I do too, which actually makes you a decent rhythm player, but pretty shitty for like I could do like a blues solo if it's really really slow. But yeah, I do have hot dog fingers. No, I've got the primary weapon there is the guitar, although that's an electric one. I don't know. I have roommates. So my opportunity to shred is pretty limited. So usually I'm rocking with an acoustic, which you can see right there. But no, and then the other two, mandolin, banjo, still learning. That's like the that's the unnecessarily complicated one. But I can do chords and stuff.
Listen, I'm Greek. We have the bouzouki, which is 12 strings. And a bloody nightmare. I remember asking my dad, I'm like, hey, are there any like tips or booklets to learn how to play the bouzouki? And he goes, you play with your heart to the bouzouki. You do not have a lesson. This is how you express your love and your emotion. I'm like, so the answer is no. There's no booklet you can hand me. That's fine. Perfect. Thank you.
No, that's code for I don't want to pay for lessons.
He paid for them for my brother too, and I'm like, I took his, and I'm like, I'm just gonna steal this and give it to my wife. That's fine.
he is the talented one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't believe in you, son.
Yeah. His first game. That's fair.
I have no idea.
I don't know, Andrew. But yeah,
see the Pokemon thing. I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. So, like, my wife is ridiculously talented when it comes to music. She used to be a first chair violinist, and the thing is, like, weirdly, I'm not sure if you know what this is. It's called an automaton. So it looks kind of like a tiny little thingy, but it's got a mouth on it, and it's electronic, and it's very interesting. But like, I've given it to her, and I'm like, "Hey, can you play the Super Mario thing?" And she's like, and then she'll just play it. And I'm like, "What kind of witchcraft is that?" And there she is. Hi, Victoria.
Not immediately find that sexy. That's amazing.
It's a wild thing. And then I'm just like, how are you not doing that? She's like, and I'm like, all right, what's up, Canada, man?
I have friends like that where they, just get a wild hair and they're like, I'm going to learn the banjo. And then 2 days later, they're Earl Scruggs. And you're like, get the fuck out of here, man.
No. Yeah.
I have a buddy in Birmingham who he was not a comedian, but he was kind of around the comedy scene around the time I started. He was friends with a lot of people I was friends with when I first kind of started doing stand up down there. His name is Drew Belk, and he at some point was just like, everybody's playing guitar. He was going to move to Nashville to try to become a professional musician, and he kind of noticed, he's like, everybody's playing guitar, and he was an incredible just guitar player, but he kind of looked around the landscape of the music scene and realized that all of the pedal steel players in Nashville, the kind of signature instrument of country music, all of them were like, on death's door. They were all like 80 and 90 years old. And he's, he was my age. So this is, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And so he sold his Telecaster and got a pedal steel guitar, taught himself how to play it. And if you've never attempted to play one of those instruments, no disrespect to the bouzouki, but the bouzouki is a fucking acoustic guitar compared to
real
steel. It's two guitar necks laid down flat. You play it with like a slide, essentially. You have picks on all of your hands. You have two pedals, and you have these little paddles that you use your knees as well. So
that's like a church organ, but with strings, is basically where you're just like, I need all sorts of things happen. Jesus,
I'm looking this up. It looks more like a keyboard almost, like you took a guitar neck and just kind of,
or like a sitar. There's like ding dong.
Well, it's, I mean, if you don't know the sound, the second you hear one, you'll be like, oh yeah, that, because it's the sound of, I mean, it is the signature sound of country music, I would say, for the most part. But point is, my man is now playing with Zac Brown bands, and he's gone on tour with all these like giant acts. Like he just, just did it. He was like, I'm going to buy.
Oh my God, Viagra is not involved. Yes.
See, this is, this is the thing, is like, the worst part is that there are people like that who can just pick up an instrument and just start playing, just like, oh, okay. And even so my one brother has friends with a family in the UK, and he brought them to Greece to vacation, and this guy is like that. He could just pick up an instrument and start playing. So he sees bouzouki, and the guy's like, hey, can I give it a try? And the Greek guy's like, okay. So he plays like a guitar, and the guy's like, that's not how you play bouzouki. Then he plays it for him, and the guy goes, oh, okay. And then he starts playing it too, and the guy's like, what the hell? Because you're like, that's not a real person, and nobody can do that. But then you have other people who are like, I know how to play the guitar, and then they're like, ding, 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 ding. You're like, that? No, you don't. Just you're trying. I appreciate that, but there are some people who are just magical when it comes to music.
Yeah, no, that's not me. I am a tinkerer at best. Would never deign to call myself a musician. I just happen to. My mom is an antique dealer, and so she went to every yard sale in East Alabama for my entire childhood. So I just had musical instruments would just be in my room. I'd wake up on Saturday morning. I'm like, oh, I guess I have a fucking violin now. And much credit to your wife. Me attempting to play the violin, because the fingering on a violin is almost exactly the same as a mandolin. So I was like, oh, I can at least maybe figure this out. No, you can't. It is. I never got the violin to sound anything other than just awful every time I played it. So it's like, if I strummed the strings, I could make the chords, but it's that bowing and doing that motion of, because the strings are, kind of rounded off. So it is like nothing else. So I got rid of the violin. I think my mom picked it up for like, $20, and I took it to a music store, and they're like, oh, this is like $100 violin. I was like, oh, perfect. So
perfect. Yeah. That's okay. My wife is like, I like the instrument. Well, of course you do, honey. That's one of my uncles.
If I could play it, it's beautiful. Obviously, I wish. I really gave it a try, but it was not. It was not meant to be.
I love the idea of like, hey, can you do the Super Mario thing? Fucking nope. It's can't do it on a violin.
That's the best part, is like, every time I've asked her, she's like, no. And she'd be like, beep, meh, 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 and she start going. And I'm like, what kind of, I'm like, you're a witch. There's no question. You're definitely some sort of sorceress.
You don't need a lot of pressure for the bow. It just requires the index finger to apply power. Fuck it. This episode is about learning musical instruments.
Well, hey, it ties in because listen, let's be honest. There are numerous different computer programs where you can just plug it away and whatever instrument is, and it will play that music, right? And like essentially what you're doing is you're removing, like for me, that's the perfect thing because I cannot play instruments. And it just looks like, when you see a baby hitting a piano going, dun, 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 that's what I look like playing the piano. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're like, he's going to beat up the piano. He's probably going to punch it.
He's bald like a baby. That fits.
And build like a baby. That's true. But, that's why I'm like that ability or skill, I think, like we've lost how important that is. Like the inherent ability to just grab an instrument and figure it out is like, that is hands down like a crazy thing when it comes to life, right? But
I think it's just changed. That's it. Because my opinion of I guess, and this could tie into the technology theme, is like the decentralization of the entertainment industry has allowed it to a point where a kid in his bedroom can get Pro Tools, can get access to all these things. And you're saying like, kids don't really pick up an instrument. They do. It's just their instrument is 808s, their instrument is Pro Tools, their instrument is these sort of digital things, which I don't think it can be discredited as anything different than, because like, for instance, again, like you were saying, like it is very, very difficult to become an amazing guitar player.
Yes.
It is really fucking easy to learn. Like the amount of time it would take me to figure out Pro Tools, I think that's about the exact same amount of time it would take anybody else to learn 5 chords on a guitar and pretty much be set up. And it's, I don't know, pertinent to like a discussion we were having on my show last week. We were kind of talking about this recent sort of nexus of country music and hip hop music, where the Cowboy Carter winning the Grammy for Country Album of the Year and Album of the Year, and things from a few years ago like Lil Nas X, what have you. And I we were already stretched for time, so I didn't really have time to go into it, but I'll do it here if you'll allow me. And
of course,
hip hop music is folk music now. It's the exact same kind of thing where it's the music of the masses, in that it's easy to create and easy to give voice to somebody who wouldn't have one otherwise. So in the way that Woody Guthrie, not a great musician by any means, if you listen to all of Woody Guthrie's songs, they're nothing spectacular musically, but the thing they used to say about country music is it's 3 chords and the truth. And if you're listening to something like what people kind of dismissively refer to as like SoundCloud rap, or which is just code for this guy doesn't have a record deal yet, or this person is making something out of the mainstream. If you listen to something like that, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, this is a very quick path from my brain to your ear through music. And so I don't know, it always pisses me off when that whole Old Town Road thing went down, where people are like, this is not country music. I was like, this is the essence of country music. This is the essence of folk.
Well, and I think that's something that is important, where you're like, for so long we've had kind of forced lines in between music genres, where you're like, listen, the idea of collaboration between things that don't normally go together is how you achieve greatness, right? Like, so it's the same idea when you have somebody. When there's an archaeologist who's looking at the history of time, but then you're like, oh, but you have somebody with those skills currently working in a field, they'll be able to identify stuff, because the archaeologist is just like, well, it's history, who knows? And you're like, but like, there's certain parts where you have complementing fields of science and of manufacturing and stuff, that once they come together, you're like, they can go significantly farther. So in the same sense with music, where you're like, listen, that three chords and the truth, like that's a kick in the dick, and I love it because you're like, but that's what music should be, right? It should be that heartfelt communication.
I mean, I think there's room for both. You know, I
Sure.
think there's room for you know, whatever, being in you know, having a perfected understanding of music and stuff like that. Like I'll just say, like, I can listen to Steely Dan, you know, like that's the most complicated shit in the world, and I dig that just as much as, you know, Run DMC, which is just boom bap fucking rap, you know, something that is just 808s and that's it. It's kind of
the fact that they like also like them and Aerosmith together to
right. Well, I wouldn't call Aerosmith like the most complicated thing ever, but
no,
sure,
but I'm saying
I
like
understand
it's
your meaning.
but like it's the genre mashup between the two.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's, I think, with that song specifically, you know, and Rick Rubin has said this before, is that his point was it's not a genre mashup. These are the same genres, because Run DMC didn't do anything different to that song. You know, if you listen to the original Toys in the Attic version of Walk This Way, he's rapping. That's what it is.
Yeah.
He's rapping. If you listen to, you know, Subterranean Homesick Blues by Bob Dylan, he's fucking rapping. Like this type of music has existed, and I think in the 80s there was, you can find every fucking shitty hair metal band that died, you know, when Nirvana came out. Every one of them in some MTV interview saying some shit like, "Oh man, you can't spell crap without rap." You're just like, brother, you're a dinosaur, and the comet is headed for Earth.
Yeah. Well, and it's that whole idea where people, I think it bothers me more when people try and downplay or look down on other genres when you're like, why? Like it's you should be, because look, the amount of effort that it takes to become a musician is ridiculous. Like it has to be your passion, otherwise, good luck. You know.
Yeah.
So,
or like,
so looking down on like I coined Atlas coined the phrase, I don't want to yuck your yum.
That's not
that idea
me.
where,
that is not me.
No, it was Atlas. It was Atlas from the beginning of time. He's the only person who ever said it. That's
okay.
Well, it's crazy that it got back to me before I knew you were the first person to say it.
I was not the first. Okay. Dicks. Like, I think for some, like with like music genres, it's almost unacceptable to just say I don't like, you know, X or Y genre, because then the other person will ask, why don't you? Because, you know, in parentheses, because I like it. And then that's usually where someone then has to come in with the like, you know, you can't spell crap without rap or whatever, like a way to like disparage the other genre. Like, I don't listen to a lot of rap or hip hop. It's not really my bag, but I can respect the amount of work that goes into doing the arrangements and actually like doing the rap and writing the lyrics, and like it takes a lot of work, and it's just not my thing, and that's okay. Like,
and that's fair. So like, okay, so even Victoria said I enjoy classical, but some rap music is rather layered and good. So like,
correct.
I remember first time I heard On to the Next One by Jay-Z and Swiss Beats. You're like, it's like 19 songs layered on top of each other. Like that's a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, that's music. And I'm like, some of the other stuff, I'm like, whatever, you know. But you're going, look, there's something valuable in every you know, every genre of music. You know, it's not being able to appreciate it for the skill that it takes just makes you a shitty person of low character, right? So and that's why, like, especially but that's like think about it, is somebody's like, you can't spell crap without rap. You're like, you have makeup on and giant hair. What are you talking about with your skin tight pants? Like it's so ridiculous that someone would try and throw stones when you're like, I'm clearly in a glass house right now. You're like, well, yeah, that's why you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, just like auto-tune, geez Lord, I might as well have Siri sing.
I you know what, as someone, so I can sing to the point where, so you understand, Rivers, I used to be 500 pounds. Not that I'm thin now, but I've lost like 250 pounds, right? So
What was the phrase you used? I've lost a fat person's worth of
Yes.
weight. It was 2 fat people. Now
I used to be 2 fat people. Now I'm 1 fat people. So
see, I was going to say you are literally half the man you used to be.
Yeah. I tried to explain it as I was like, oh, it's mitosis, and I had just blank stares in the audience when I said it. I'm like, nobody knows science. You're all idiots. Okay, fine, but
none of you.
You're not ready for my Golgi apparatus joke.
So yeah, because I'm like, yeah, he got the hair, I got the looks, and everyone's like, no, and I'm like, I'll cut everyone in this room. That's fine. Now I can run. So you're all in danger. But the wild thing is that like what was it? I would go to one comedy place on Friday nights, and they would have comedy, and then they would have karaoke afterward. And I would stick around, and one of the guys who ran it loved doing Backstreet Boys. And I'm like, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I'm like, I love Backstreet Boys because I'm a dork. But so I would grab it on the mic and start singing with him. And everyone I know who knows me to be, someone who has what's called a resting murder face, they're like, you have the voice of an angel. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can sing. And they're like, how is that possible? Because I'm also, at 500 pounds. They're like, none of this makes any sense. I'm like, still talented. What are you gonna do?
What? You never heard of Solomon Burke? You never saw Aretha Franklin? Fat people could sing, motherfucker.
Yeah,
exactly.
What are you talking about? Reuben Studdard, Birmingham, in the house.
Aretha Franklin is responsible for my favorite cover song of all time, which was she did a version of Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, and the lyrics are still the lyrics, but she makes it sound like Eleanor Rigby, like she's happy about it. It's great.
Wait, who did that?
Aretha Franklin.
Oh, it's Aretha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Give the Dwayne Allman and Wilson Pickett version of "Hey Jude" a chance. That is the only Beatles cover that I'll allow.
I will look that up.
Hold on. Now I got to look that up because "Hey Jude," I love that song.
This, so this will give me something to do.
So just a little fun backstory on that. Wilson Pickett was recording at Muscle Shoals, and this was before the Allman Brothers were like big. So Dwayne is a session guitar player, and Dwayne has long ass hair, looks like a deadbeat hippie, and Wilson Pickett, of course, is black. And so the band goes out for lunch, and Wilson is like, this is Alabama in the 60s. So Wilson's like, just get me something to go. I don't want to deal with the fucking hassle. And Dwayne Allman, of course, it looks like a hippie. They're not going to let him in the restaurant either way.
Yeah.
So they just start jamming, and you get basically the birth of Southern rock from this. Like, wow. Everybody comes back to the studio, and they're like, and "Hey Jude's" the #1 song in the world at the time. They're just jamming on it, and Wilson Pickett sings the fuck out of that song, and then at the very end you get to hear some pre-Allman Brothers Dwayne Allman just comes shredding in out of the thin blue sky.
I can't wait to listen to that. I'm dying to listen to that right now.
I know.
Give that a listen, Ski.
I looked it up on Spotify. It's on my playlist. I'm going to listen to it on the drive back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
something to do.
Brian says, "Are you guys talking about guitar?" Absolutely. We're talking about music, guitars, whatever you want. Yeah. You missed it. You missed it, Brian. Jesus, be on time next time. No, it's fine. See, that's the thing is like that idea of collaboration and stuff. I'm like, people need to do more of that. Like you said, like Run DMC and Aerosmith obviously was very, very, very popular, but you're like, that's not, who cares, right? But at the same time, you're going like, but something like that where you're going, they sang "Hey Jude," you're like, oh, number one, "Hey Jude" is a fucking killer song. So the fact that two guys did that like that, you're like, oh, I will definitely like, oh yeah. See, that's the other thing is like my problem. I'm old. I'm like 1,000 years old, and I like
he does this every episode.
That's fine. Listen, I because I was so fat, I aged in dog years. So it was just extra gravity and made me more aged. But it's fine. The point is, this is like now I hear some new music, and I'm like, that's not music. You're just talking to sound. It's not a thing. And then I hear other new music, and I'm like, that's awesome. You're like when someone like I feel like I feel like music has to communicate not necessarily a message, but something. There has to be some sort of information, right? Like, and especially some music, you don't even need lyrics, and you're like, I feel everything. Which, as someone who has a lump of coal instead of a heart, it's amazing. I'll tell you. You're just like, oh look, emotions. So exciting. But
I was about to go on a tirade about musicals, but I will restrain myself for the good of our guest. So
Well, I was just gonna say that the fact that you have that reaction to anything, the reaction being this isn't music, that's why it's cool to people who are younger.
yes.
It's
Oh
the
yeah,
same
for sure.
reason. It's the exact same. Like my job here in LA, in addition to just dazzling the Los Angeles stand-up comedy scene, I'm also a tour guide, and I do private tours. Basically, it's like one family at a time.
Cool.
Take them around Hollywood. Show them how whatever sites, take pictures, all that shit. Great job. Been doing it a long time, but it does give me a chance to interact with families, and specifically with like younger kids, and it's I think given me a great sort of attitude about any sort of professional jealousy that might ever arrive in terms of show business, because it's like no one gives a shit. No one cares. No normal person can name a stand-up comedian that's still doing it. Like, that's the funniest thing to me is I'll tell them like, oh yeah, they're like, why did you move to LA? I'm like, oh, I'm a comedian. They go, oh, that's great. We love stand-up. I'm like, who are your favorite stand-ups? And invariably they're like, oh, well, Robin Williams before he died. I used to love Eddie Murphy. And I'm like, name someone who's done it in the last 40 years. And they can, because we are
George Carlin before he died. Yeah.
On the lab. They don't know. I'll mention Carlin and people are like, oh yeah, I think my dad listened to that before he died in 2000. Like, people like on the ladder of show business, we are in between professional wrestler and rodeo clown. That's where we're at. It doesn't so nothing.
It's a nice niche though. It's a nice niche. I like it. It's
right. But all of that is to say is like the reason television is dying, obviously we're doing it right now. It's because people are pumping out internet content, and there is this thing that is so funny to me where parents are like, yeah, we'll be like talking about TV or something, and I'll mention like, oh yeah, Breaking Bad or like all these classic shows, and the parents will be like, yeah, and I've been trying to get my kids into such and such or Seinfeld or whatever, and they just want to watch like people on their phone, and I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, that's why. That's why they like it, is because you have such a reaction to
you hate it. Like,
it's the same reason that like when South Park dropped, I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I have to see it because my mom told me preemptively that it's bad. So I'm like, this is now forbidden fruit. And so the fact that you kind of mentioned that with music, you're like, yeah, it's just somebody talking over beats. You're like, and they love it because you are flummoxed. It's like when I told I was a big fan of there was a professional wrestler in the 1990s named The Godfather, and
1990s.
His catchphrase, he was a pimp, and he would come out to the ring with a bunch of hoes, and when they were about to fight, he would instead of fighting, he would say, I'll give you some of these ladies you can have for the evening. And then the guy would take the women, and then they would ring the bell, and the guy would get counted out. And that's how he would win all of his matches. And his catchphrase was "Pimpin' ain't easy." And there was definitely a moment where I, not understanding anything about the world at that point, being in sixth grade, said that to my mom when she told me to like clean my room. I was like, Mom, pimpin' ain't easy. And she was like, what the fuck?
What are you talking about?
And I think that sealed my brain that wrestling is cool forever, because of her reaction to it was just like, what the fuck did you just say? So,
listen, your description that it's like between stand-up comedians, between wrestling and rodeo clown, I'm like, I'm fit for all those jobs because I'm 6'2" and 250 pounds. I'm like, that is mine. That is my niche right there, that window. I'm like, I could be fodder for the wrestling, fodder for the animals hitting stuff. That's for sure. I actually interviewed a rodeo clown, and he was explaining stuff to me. I'm like, how? He's like, you'll break everything. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do that. Because you're pretty big. That's a bad idea. I'm like, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I just mean that in terms of fame level. Like, the chances of you breaking out of this little bubble that we all live in is so low that it's like, just have fun. And it's becoming less and less now, which is good. But there was a time, like when I first moved to Los Angeles, where somebody who sucks would get a shot on like the Tonight Show or something, and people would be all pissed about it. And you're just like, brother, no one watches Jimmy Kimmel. No one watches any of these things. These shows
no one that we respect watches Jimmy Kimmel. Like,
Well, no, it's not even that. It's like the people who are watching are asleep before the comedian goes on because they are old people in nursing homes, and everybody else is not like writing down like, oh, I must find out more about this stand-up comedian. Like it's not a path necessarily.
But then that becomes like a credit forever where like you've seen him on Jimmy Kimmel and then you don't have to worry ever again.
That's true. Well, but that's why you make up things. When streamers die, that becomes your new credit because nobody has any way to check. Like you've seen me on CISO, Atlas, you know this. I had like 2 seasons of the most successful show on CISO.
Yeah, it's kind of like for the people out there who are like, I have no idea what they're talking about. When you're like applying for a job and you're like, I was a manager at Toys R Us. Go ahead, try and check. Yeah.
Best of luck.
You guys saw my stand-up special in 6 parts on Quibi. Yeah. I dare you to say otherwise.
Hilariously, like, bro, you know how many times I had friends call me and they're like, "Hey, I'm interviewing for this job. Can I put you down as reference?" I'm like, yeah, sure. What? They're like, okay, I'm going to tell them that you were my manager. And I'm like, I was never your manager. They're like, yeah, I need you to lie. I'm like, oh, what do you want me to say? Just write out what you want me to say and I'll make it up. That's fine. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm like, does everyone do this? Apparently everyone does this. And I'm like, oh, I'm the idiot here just giving the truth. Like a fucking dipshit. That's fine.
Brian, I thought for a long time it would be kind of fun to set up like some kind of Google Voice line and just offer a service where you're the lie. Like it'd be great. You get a bunch of actors, like voice actors working for you. So like, people who can do regional accents, like, oh yeah, this guy in Philly I used to work for and have, some inspiring voice actor pop on a Yinzer Philly fucking accent and use
from the Midwest where you're just like, oh yeah, he was a great manager. Unfortunately, my store closed because I'm a small business owner and I suck at finance, but he was a great manager,
Yeah.
Also, too, I forgot that it's St. Patty's Day this weekend.
On Monday. It is.
Start drinking. I mean, realistically, I feel like a lot of people are going to have already started drinking and they're not sobering up until Tuesday, which I'm like, yeah, that's reasonable.
It kind of sucks that St. Patty's is on a Monday. Like, ugh.
No, nobody cares. You know why? They're still going to get drunk. That's fine.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. One of the good parts about like being here in Mammoth is like it's not a hotel. It's like and it's not an Airbnb, condo, whatever it is. Sure. A living space is like walking distance from the little Hogsmeade village they have down there. There are lots of bars, and I have been wasted for the last 2 nights. It's been great.
I mean, that sounds
because reasonable. I can walk back. Walkable cities, yay!
That's fine. Stand Up is Dead. Victoria says, I find volume has a lot to do with it too. An okay song played mega loud is in an echo chamber could still sound wicked good. I mean, like, this is the thing is like that whole idea of being able to crank. Like, I love driving and just like making myself deaf for the next 4 hours. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's top tier business.
I'm going to sing along to You Got Another Thing Coming by Judas Priest with the windows open in the middle of nowhere. It'll be great.
Yeah. Brian said Boston is celebrating today. I mean, listen, Boston doesn't need a reason to get shit-faced on a Sunday, Brian. Come on, we all know that.
In the car, get wasted.
I seriously, for a split second, I thought he was talking about the band. I was like, smoking, peace of mind, more than feeling good.
Well, Brian did mention the Yamaha TAG3C Looper acoustic guitar, which I'm like, that sounds like a lot of words that I don't know the meaning of. But hey. Why not?
I had a question for you, fellas. I'm sure we've both mentioned the fact that we've played musical instruments. What was your first musical instrument that you learned, and how did it go?
Recorder. Awesome. I was a banger. You know why? Hey, the advantage of having ridiculously large hands is none of the people were like, I can't reach, and I'm like, I'm reaching it all with one hand. I'm like, I'm just blah, 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 blah.
I'm playing all the songs from Legend of Zelda. Fucking yeah.
Mine is also a recorder, but in the interest of saying something interesting on my part, when I was going into 7th grade, that's when you start concert bands, and they had we were in the science lab and they had all of the instruments spread out on the table, and of course I was like, went for the normal ones, the saxophone, the trumpet. And of course, I was a fat child, so I was immediately led over to the tuba table, and that is where I picked up the tuba, which I can also theoretically play. But I've honestly forgotten most. Well, no, I think I still remember all the fingers. It would just be like getting back that on the shore that they talk about, like that shit.
Okay, hilariously, in grade 5, the somebody came and we had a presentation of all the different instruments, and they were like, "Hey, everybody, try and do as loud as you can." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could do that super loud. I'm very talented because I'm 10 years old and I'm a fat kid." And they're like, "You should play the tuba." High school, I'm like, "Hey, I was thinking I might learn the tuba," and all the music teachers were like, "We need a tuba, absolutely." And then I told my dad, he's like, "Not on your life. You're going to learn piano." And I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Why?
fine." Because he didn't want a tuba in his house. That is it. After a long day, he's like, "Yeah, no, you're not." I'm like, "What about like French horn?" He's like, "No, you're gonna."
You can play the keyboard with the headphones on. That's why.
That's exactly, yeah. That was that's it. Yeah.
When I was gonna say when I was in I played in middle school, and then when I got to high school, they had as a substitute for PE, if you signed up for marching band, you didn't have to do PE. So I was like, great. So I did marching band for 2 years. Now here's the thing: the tuba in a marching band situation it's not
heavy.
a tuba, it's a sousaphone, and it's that gigantic bell horn that you see the marching band guys march with. That's a tuba. It's the same octave range and everything. It's just you have to carry it, and it's loud. And here's the other thing: it's the loudest thing on the field. So if you're not good at it and don't care, and both of those things were true of me, I hated it and I didn't care. I got steadily demoted throughout the season. So the first game, I was right there. I was playing a mix-up of Carlos Santana and Matchbox 20 Smooth, on the field with everybody. And then the band leader was like, "Wow, something sounds off with this. Oh, it's definitely him." So then I was given a dead saxophone and told to march with the saxophones. And so
oh my God,
it never had a reed on it. It was dead. You couldn't play it. And then I was given a dead clarinet. And then, so I was basically just plugging holes in the formations. And then by the end of the year, they had relegated me. I don't know what the name of, I'm sure somebody listening or maybe one of you knows what this thing is called. We always called it the fish. And it was just that wooden thing that was kind of shaped like a bowling pin or a fish. And you would go rip, rip, rip. You'd run a drumstick over it, and it would make this like rivet kind of sound.
I know the exact instrument you're talking about. Yeah.
So
it's something. It's not a washboard, but it's something else. I don't remember the name, but I know it's
sorry, I'm traveling.
Metal.
This is like in the thingy that I'm staying in with my sister and my brother-in-law. It's very boring.
Yeah, it's a similar concept to a washboard, but a washboard's metal. This thing is wood. But the point is, I was given the fish by the end of the year, and the sound coming from the sidelines of a high school football game on Friday night in the South, boy, that fish really made a lot of difference in the percussion line that I was stuck in by the end of the year. So they basically just slowly demoted me until I was just.
See, this is the thing is because I can't play the bouzouki, but the clarinet is a huge instrument in Greek music. So I'm like, I've been debating trying to learn the clarinet, but I'm like, at the same time, we live in a semi-detached. So I'm like, there's one wall that is shared, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to ruin the relationship with my neighbor or if I want to go outside and ruin the whole street. Which realistically, I'm pretty sure I'm the biggest guy on the street, so I'm not too worried. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
My friend Caroline, back when we were in college, we were hanging out at her place, and her next door neighbor had gotten a flute and was just playing the first 5 notes of "My Heart Will Go On" over and over and over. So Caroline and I are just sitting on the couch and just hearing boo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo, and it's one of those things where how sometimes it's goes from funny to annoying, and then that funny comes around like a fist to the back of the head, man. The fifth time he did it, we were fucking inconsolable. Like it was, and I don't know if he ever did it again because we were laughing so fucking
So
hard.
hard
And that
you could hear it
was
through the wall. Yeah,
he definitely heard it. Like we were fucking crying at it. It was so goddamn funny.
that's
Oh,
But
great.
yeah. So
Top tier.
I appreciate your restraint in that regard. But you know, if you hear
Yeah. Yeah.
hear a couple of kids laughing at you, then you know.
I still like, and that's the thing is, I'm like, I feel like learning another language is also like akin to learning a musical instrument. Like those are things that are important for your mental growth. I think that's a very important thing that if you don't do it, like you are going to miss out. I don't know. It's like, I know that some people, but being in touch with music in some way, shape, or form, I think is beneficial. One second, Harvey. Why do Americans pretend to be Irish? Because
You
it's
don't have
fun.
to look at all the comments.
Number one, I'm
Oh.
Greek. I'm Greek, and number one. Number two, it's. Have you ever seen how people imitate Irish people? It's the funniest shit you've ever seen.
Oh,
Okay, Harvey,
I'm not gonna
have
do it.
some fun.
It is fun, but I'm not going to do it because Dino makes fun of me.
Oh, if you want to hear a horrible, and I mean horrible, accent of any kind, my friend Atlas down there,
I hate you so much.
the worst.
Okay.
I
So
would,
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I would say to this person, if you're commenting from Ireland, I would highly encourage you at some point because the well-known St. Patrick's Day celebrations in the United States are Boston, Chicago. Those are the two. I would say Chicago is basically just because of the movie The Fugitive. That's the main reason people know about it, but they dye the river green. Boston obviously has deep Irish heritage and stuff like that. May I suggest, if you are from Ireland and would like to see the most underrated of the St. Patrick's Day festivals, I think technically the second biggest one, only behind Boston in the country, is in Savannah, Georgia. And
Interesting.
shout out to my co-host on my podcast and my dear friend Carter. He was the one who made this observation, but
there you go.
Deeply Southern men pretending to be Irish is the funniest word. It's just like, I'm fucking Irish, bro. Like, dude, this is about our heritage and coming over from the Emerald Isle, you know. And you just get, now imagine 500,000 of those guys shit-faced on Bud Light, puking in the streets of beautiful southern town. Savannah's gorgeous, but on St. Patrick's Day weekend, it is just a bunch of guys just being like, fuck with me, bro. I kissed the fucking Blarney Stun, bro. Come on, dude. Yeah. So.
Listen, and that's the thing is, I was born in Canada, but my parents were Greek. They migrated, so I'm first generation here. I'm like, yeah, but I go to Greece, I learn Greek, and I speak Greek. So, and also too, listen, Harvey, unless you're from Ireland, your O'Hare last name made up. Don't lie, okay?
Dude,
I know Harvey, man. Harvey's a big. He's a fucking dude. He supports the Sinn Féin. He's a real guy, man. I saw him there when I kissed the Blarney Stone.
Spot on. I love it. It's fantastic. I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like that's people go overboard celebrating their history. Let's hear your Greek. Ise malaka, pusti. That's how. There you go. A little Greek for you. So, but that's fine. Yeah, I feel like that's part of growth. That's why I'm like, the investment of time and energy it takes to become proficient in anything is part of that experience, right? Like it's that whole idea that the journey matters as well, right?
I'll give you an example. So I teach a creative writing class in addition to English, and I try and switch between like big story and then like a little assignment, and then a big story, then a little assignment. And the little assignment that I gave them was like a 4-panel comic. Yes, it's a writing class, but you have to draw this 4-panel comic. Yeah. And a lot of the kids were like, well, I'm not good at drawing. And I'm like, well, neither am I. But I care more about the like writing and the story and the characters. And you can make a stick figure expressive. And then I was showing them all the things with like little sweat drop on the side for if someone's nervous, or the popping vein, like from anime. Like to do that. And then kids were still complaining, like, I'm not good at drawing. I'm like, then draw more. And then you'll get better at it. And then like
well, that's what
Atlas on behalf of all of the kids who finished their homework 2 minutes before class started. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So on behalf of people who don't like to think about shit very much, like, oh yeah, this guy gave us an easy thing.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's fine. But then like the assignment I gave them before was like they had to do like a full world building exercise, and then so it was like a really long one. So the comic was like a palate cleanser.
I say that because I'm a kid who liked to draw. You know, I'm not very similar to my guitar skills. I'm not a good drawer. Championship doodler. Fuck with me at Pictionary, motherfucker. Fuck with me.
Yeah.
I'm not
for the Pictionary.
I'm not gonna sit there and do a still life with water lilies and shit. Yeah. But if you tell me to
for the art teacher upstairs,
tell me to draw a zebra, I'm gonna make it look like a goddamn zebra. Like I am a championship doodler, and anytime I got an assignment like that, I always like took it pretty seriously. And then you would just see people who just farted something out at the bus stop. You're like, man, fuck off, dude.
Yeah.
Why are you not taking Mr. Novack shit seriously, bro? I'm fucking Irish, man. I'm just overly, bro.
Like that is the problem with my electives, because half of them are kids who are like, I want to learn how to write a good story, or I'm really interested in movies, film study. And the other half are like, I didn't pick an elective because I didn't bother to fill out my schedule, and they dumped me here, and I'm going to make a life of living hell for everyone else. It's the worst. I hate it.
Oh, you gotta inspire those kids, man. You gotta turn your seat backwards and you know, put on
tell them how cool Jesus is. You know the drill. It's
walk on the desks and give them. Yeah, it's like
I've actually done that before. It's fun.
It is fun. Listen, I think the one important part, and this is where like I think that is the only saving grace that we have, is like that idea where you're like a creative teacher who loves his subject is unduplicatable. You're like that. You will learn so much more just because of their enthusiasm. They're going to learn different ways to make sure they can communicate with you. And you're like, I had a algebra geometry teacher who loved it. Like he was actually a doctor of mathematics, but he was a little guy with like great hair. But he was just like, he just loved math, right? And I'm like, but his love of math gave math life, right? So it was always an exciting, because he's like, well, he goes, I know you guys are wondering, like, when am I going to use this? Because the whole point was you need an algebra geometry credit for university. And you're like, that's stupid, but regardless. So he's like, I understand you guys are wondering, how am I going to use this? I'm going to get into university. I'm never going to use it. He goes, I'm going to show you how you use it in real life. And then he would go into the whole thing. And you're going, he gave me something that had value, right? If I'm not willing to invest in that, like, what's the point?
Yeah, most of the time your music teacher is the shit too. What?
Or he's constructed a very elaborate fiction. I have literally never used math in my life. You know the number I fucking memorized? 12/05/2005. That's the last date of my last math class. I never thought about it again. I gladly pay a Russian lady in Venice to do my taxes every year. No problem. I will never think about it. It does not concern me in the least. Now, that said, bouncing off what you said, the flip side of that, I had a couple of English teachers back to back who were so proficient at their subject, it made me want to look like not a dumbass when I walked in there.
Thank you.
Which is like a thing of like, these two people are so fucking cool that like I don't want to seem like shithead, so I'm gonna read The Great Gatsby and really try to like wrap my head around it, so I don't seem like lame in front of these two. And you're right, that is, I get your point. I'm just funning about math, but I personally I feel about math the way I feel about free jazz and improv. I'm glad y'all like it. Not for me.
Nobody likes improv. Nope. How dare you?
Y'all have fun with your Ornette Coleman. Y'all have fun with your ASCAT. Y'all have fun with your fucking calculus. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know. But I'm glad you guys are having a good time.
I've never been more confused than friends who used to be stand-up comedians who are like, I'm going to start doing improv. And then I went to a show to be supportive, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening right now. To the point where like some people will outwardly start laughing at non-funny parts, but they're like, ha, 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 and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then a funny thing happens, nothing. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. This is not for me. I just turn around and walk away. I'm like, yeah, good. I'm very supportive.
Yeah. Yeah,
I like
my thing